In this episode, Verity Crawley rejoins the show to chat about winning double gold in the European Championship of Champions and shares with us her California Girl impersonation. I'm Tim Young, and this is The Bowler's Mind. Hi, Verity. Welcome back to the show, and thanks for being here.
Hello, thanks for having me again.
So, exciting news. You won gold in the European Championship, but not just the European Championship. It was the European Championship of Champions, which sounds very elite. So I'm curious as to how you got chosen for that, what that process was like.
And it wasn't just one gold, it was two golds.
Two golds.
Yeah, two golds. So normally for that event, it is the winner of a national championship. So for however many years, as I remembered, if you won nationals in your country, then you had the possibility to go to that tournament. So most of the players that were actually there from other countries were there because they won some form of tournament in order to be able to bowl the event. Whereas for us this year, for Team England, it was all down to selection. So I was actually just asked if I would be interested in bowling, and the same for the guys. And that was how we ended up there.
What was the format for singles and doubles?
Okay, so the first day was singles, and it was 8 games. The next day was mixed doubles, which was also 8 games. And then the day after that was singles again, with the previous 16 games combining to your singles total. Now, for the mixed doubles, it was simply just those 8 games. So whoever was top after 8 games was who won, which was very different because there was no match play. There was head to head in the sense that we were competing against everybody, but it was just more about, okay, keep pushing through those 8 games. And that was what I felt like we did a very good job of, actually. So then singles, there was 24 games of qualifying, and then they made a cut. We then bowled another 8 games, then they cut again. And then we bowled 4 games, and then they made another cut to the top 4. And then whoever was positioned 1 played against 4, and whoever was second played against third. And then the winner of those 2 became the title match. So I liked the format because it was quite a lot of bowling. Sometimes you go to events and, you just bowl the 6 games, and that then determines who makes the semi-finals. Whereas for this, I liked that day in and day out, we were adding to our score, essentially. I always feel like as the tournament goes, I tend to learn, whether that's a good or a bad thing. Normally, I like to think it's a good thing. Sometimes I struggle, like in this event, I struggled on the first day, and I was happy that I then had the opportunity to keep learning. The mixed doubles then added a kind of whole new realm into it because we were bowling with the men. It's very different for the women when it's just women on the lanes versus when there is men on the lanes too. So that became even more of a challenge. And we also knew that, well, however we bowl in this mixed doubles, those scores are now carrying forward to singles. So actually, I think there was a few teams that for the women were maybe a bit more conservative than they should have been. They thought, okay, well, I just need to shoot 190 because that's going to help me towards my single score, instead of actually searching and figuring out what to do with the men to score more, to have yourself a chance of winning a medal. They were almost a little bit uneasy because they didn't want to ruin the singles chance.
Were the men and women bowling together the whole entire tournament, even for singles?
No, so for singles, it was all individual. The men and the women bowled at separate times. So we were only worried about how the women were breaking down the lane, and the men were only worried about themselves. But then when it got to mixed doubles, it was an interaction to where we bowl with mixed.
You mentioned earlier about bowling more games. Do you feel like you're more of a marathon bowler than a sprinter? As far as when you have that time to make up ground, you're a little bit more relaxed as compared to if you only had 6 games to qualify. It's a mad dash.
I think so. And I know that probably I shouldn't have this mindset, but ever since I've been young, I've always felt like I've had a bad game, right? Like I've always managed to shoot 160. And I always feel like the more games I have, the more opportunity I have to make up for that game. Now, obviously the goal is not to have that low game, but it's nice to know that the more games, the more chance you have of learning and improving on that score. And for me, that also showed at ECC in the finals, because the finals was best of 3. And the 2 matches that I bowled, I lost both first games. And for me, if that had just been a one game shootout, I would have been done. I wouldn't have made it to the finals. But because it was best of three, I had the opportunity to fight back. And part of me sometimes wonders, maybe I just enjoy that fight. I bowl a lot of tournaments to where I have a good block, then I have a bad block, and then I have to dig myself out of a hole. And I seem to always find a way to fight back somehow. I think deep down, there's part of me that enjoys that fight.
So tell me a little bit about your experience bowling doubles with your teammate Hadley.
It was a lot of fun. I have known Hadley since I was very young, probably since I was 10 or 11. We grew up bowling the same tournaments in the UK. And the last time we competed together was in Denmark in 2012, which was when I bowled a European Youth Championships. So it was kind of this like full circle moment of I had been competing in Europe as a junior bowler, and then I moved to the US, and I've done this whole, professional journey and all of that. And now I'm back in Europe bowling with someone that I bowled with when I was youth. And it was just a really enjoyable experience. Hadley has a lot of knowledge. He's very involved with the sport, owning Pro Shop and an apparel company. So even just being able to catch up with him, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time bowling with him, and we've, not bowled together or spoken bowling in a very long time, but I felt like we were able to help one another. I told him a few things like, hey, if you see this, like, please just tell me. And then vice versa. So I felt like that dynamic worked really well.
How confident did you feel going into the finals and singles?
Quite confident. However, I also know that anything can happen, right? I had to have that confidence within me that I'm going to win. And that's something that I didn't used to have years ago. I would never have told you that Saturday morning, like, no, I'm winning a gold medal today. Whereas this year, I really feel like I had that. And I think part of that allows me to continue to fight. After I lost the first game, to me, it didn't matter. I still knew that I had an opportunity to win. And I think that's where it becomes easier to fight back because I have the confidence that I'm going to do it.
How was it? What was your experience like representing your country and throughout the whole tournament? I saw just some of your on your Instagram. It seemed like you were walking out with the flags and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's always an honor. I've always, from a young age, wanted to represent Team England. And growing up, that was always my biggest goal. My goal was to represent Team England and to win medals and to be a world champion. And growing up, I didn't have that many opportunities to. I was often part of the training squad for Team England. And we would have 8 to 10 people that would be part of this squad. And then 4 or 5 bowlers would then be chosen to go to the event. And I always found that I fell short. I was always, that one pick that didn't get to go, or I was 6th instead of 5th. And it definitely fueled me to keep working harder because it got to the point where I was like, I need to make sure they have no reason not to pick me. And that was kind of how I felt back in 2012 when I bowled the European Youth Championships was like, you have to pick me. You have no reason not to pick me at this point. Like, pick me. So it's always been a driving force. So anytime I do get to represent England, I feel very honoured to be able to have England on my back. Obviously, now I'm competing at the highest level that I can. And I like to think that I'm spreading the word about professional bowling in England. And I was very lucky, and Hadley and I were both very lucky to have so much support from back home when we were bowling this event. Obviously, there's always going to be some politics involved that we were chosen, and how do we get chosen over other people? So, one, I appreciate just even being chosen. And then it's also such a nice feeling to know that everyone back home also wanted us to win. People were watching the live stream. There was a lot of comments all over Facebook and Instagram. So that support also means a lot as well.
So speaking of support, I know that your parents were able to come and witness you bowling in person. How special was that having them with you?
Oh, extremely. It's always, they fueled my career as a young bowler, and I definitely wouldn't be here where I am today without them. Even from the fact of them saying, hey, yeah, I think you should go to America and you should study at university. And in the end, that was all down to them. So I've always enjoyed having them with me when I compete. When I was really young, I might not have said the same thing. I used to argue a lot with them because, I bowl bad. And then they try to tell me, why did you bowl bad? Why didn't you change your bowling ball? And just that typical relationship that you have with your parents when you're young. But since I have grown up and I have such a close relationship with them that I wish that they could watch me bowl at every single event. And they do on live stream, but they don't always get to be there in person. So I feel like it is extra special that they were there, that they got to see me represent my country. And obviously the fact I won as well is kind of the icing on the cake. And for me, the other special element that maybe I haven't really spoken about very much is that I shot 300 at that tournament. And the last time they'd seen me shoot 300 was back in 2012 at that European event that Hadley was also at. And that was kind of my stepping stone to getting to the US, was that championships. And it was kind of this crazy full circle moment to me of like, oh, wow, mum and dad are here again. And they were here in 2012. And that was my first 300 in 2012. So it was pretty special.
What was going through your mind in the 10th frame, knowing that they're right behind you watching and you've got a chance for 300?
I remember thinking to myself, if you get the first one, you're shooting 300. And I got the first one, and I just had that belief of, well, you're not doing anything other right now than shooting 300. And my mum cheers a lot. A lot of people have probably seen the videos on social media of her cheering, and just the sheer loudness that came out of her after that 12th shot. It was like, oh, it was amazing. And I'm so glad I have it on video, because I watch it back and it's like my heart just melts. I'm like, oh my God, I love that.
Did you want that 300 more for them than yourself?
Oh, 100%. Like, as much as I wanted it, and it was definitely a great addition to my score at the time. I felt like I needed those pins, but for me, it was more about them watching me succeed and definitely showing them that like the hard work was worth it. And this is why I moved to the US. This is why I'm so many thousand miles away from you, is so that I can do this and you guys can witness it too.
If they were here with us right now in this conversation, what do you think they would say, watching you as a little girl bowling at a young age, and now as an adult reaching the goals that you dreamed about as a little girl? What do you think they would say?
Well, my mum would be crying. So then I would be crying. So there might not be much conversation going on. No, but I think they would just say how proud they are of me. Yeah, just that they're proud and they want me to continue doing what I love.
So while in Berlin, did you get to do any sightseeing?
I had an opportunity to go to Berlin actually the day after arrival, and it was a very strange experience. There was police everywhere. So we got the train to the Brandenburg Gate. That was like the main thing that we wanted to start at. And then I had actually planned where we were going to go. And it was cordoned off, and there was police everywhere. And obviously they're speaking in German. So I have no idea what's going on. So I actually ended up Googling it. And then we actually heard a policewoman speak in English, and she was saying that there was a protest going on. So it was quite a scary time, actually, because even walking around Berlin, there were certain areas that were just very quiet and almost felt deserted. And then you would get to the more touristy areas, and there was loads of people, but then there was also a lot of police too. So it was very strange. I really enjoyed it from a history aspect. There was a lot to see and a lot to read, almost too much to read, to where I feel like I could actually read everything and soak it all in, right? And be able to then blurt back to you everything that I saw and everything that I learned, but I just can't. It was just too much information. But very cool. I would like to go back. I didn't get an opportunity to go back anymore whilst I was at the event. So there was definitely a few things that I would have liked to have seen that I didn't. But any downtime I had was actually when Hadley was bowling. So because the men and the women didn't bowl at the same time, I had that time, but I really wanted to be there for him and watch and support him. So I stayed in the bowling center, and the area was very nice. The bowling center was actually in a shopping center, and the hotel was right across the street. So it made it very easy for us to just be able to go across and watch the bowling if we wanted to, because it was literally just a walk across the street.
All right, so last question. Last time you were here, you mentioned that you can do a Valley Girl impersonation, and if you came back on the podcast, you would do it for us.
No, I definitely didn't say that.
I believe you did. In fact, I might just edit this so we can replay that for anyone who is wondering if I'm telling the truth or not.
I can do a California girl, and I'm not going to do it.
Oh, come on now.
Maybe if you have me back on your podcast.
Okay. We'll save that for next time.
This is a lot of pressure, Tim. Give me something to say. I always, in college, it was always hamburger and water were always the two words that I would say, because anytime I would order water at a restaurant, people wouldn't know. Like the amount of looks I've got of when I've said water, or the amount of times I've said water and someone has said, sorry, we don't have that. I'm like,
yeah, you do.
Pretty sure you do. So, yeah, water was always.
All right, so I'm the waiter at a restaurant. I come up to take your order. Hello, ma'am. What would you like today?
Please, can I get a hamburger with a water?
That's good. That's good.
It feels so weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's funny to see that coming out of you, because that does sound like a Valley girl. It doesn't
suit me though, right? Or
it does not. It does not.
Okay.
Well, Verity, thank you so much for your time. Come back on the show and sharing about your ECC experience. Hope you have a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and happy holiday.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time on The Bowler's Mind.